this music. I like this music. That, of course, is one of the great hair bands of all time. One of the great rock and roll bands of all time. Faster Pussycat, yes. Named after a Russ Meyer film. Now, how can you not like... That is so rock and roll right there. And when I was a kid, I did not know that Faster Pussycat's You're So Vain was actually a remake of Carly Simon's famous pop song. I remember people saying, Marky, you wouldn't like it. It's poo pop. It's not, it's not hard enough for you or anything like. I actually enjoy Carly Simon's. Yes, I like You're So Vain just fine. Of course, there's the question. Who was You're So Vain about? Warren Beatty? This is a really old school music conversation, but now, let's stick with it here. Even the Faster Pussycat version is 29 years old now, But, no, you've got the... Anyway, I've got a contender on who I think Carly Simon wrote it about. And it's Gabe Kapler, the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, I know Gabe Kapler would have been what? Not born yet when You're So Vain came out, right? But... why not? I mean, perhaps she had a premonition about it. Because I think that it fits the situation with the Philadelphia Phillies. You're So Vain. You know what? They play Philadelphia Freedom after every Phillies victory there at Citizens Bank Park, or at least they used to when it was Veterans Stadium. But they play that song. By the way, you will never hear Philadelphia Freedom, in my opinion, on any, say, classic soft rock station. You'd think that you would. That would be, that was one of, Elton John's biggest hits. No, you do not. I don't it's not necessarily hard enough for me, and all that sort of dun, 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 it's very 1976. Okay, we give that to him and all this, time and that. But here's the deal, and I wrote this on our 1420 WEMB Sports Radio Facebook page when we put up the box score of the Braves' Saturday victory, 15-7, over the Phillies. And I mention it because that was the game Max Fried pitched. And the thought was that if Fried did real well, that maybe the Braves would not pursue a starting pitcher, say Noah Syndergaard. But if he didn't, then maybe they do. That's the big deal. Now, Kyle Wright for Noah Syndergaard. That's the big, that was, at least during the weekend, the trade rumor going about. And Iowa, though, was, the Phillies ever can get themselves a manager who, says what he means and means what he says and doesn't change his opinion, about hustling and all that, depending on whether or not he's gotten his team, or in an interview with Angelo, Corelli, up there in Philly, then maybe, and doesn't think of himself as a male model. Anyway, though, the old adage is that unless you're the 2019 Detroit Tigers, the best team is going to win a third of their, is going to lose a third of their games. The worst team is going to win a third, and then it's what you do in the other, 54 games that determines your place in the standings. That's the old... So, after the Braves take the first two up in Philly, this happened on Sunday. I'm sure you know the score, but heck, let's just listen to the call.
He's set in the payoff pitch. Swing and a drive. Deep left field. Back goes Duvall. He looks up. It's gone. Goodbye. 12 rows into the seats. Into the left field.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the end of that either. That grand slam by Real Mundo, the Phillies catcher, made it 6-0 in an eventual 9-4 victory for the Phillies. So, by doing that, they stay within 7.5. And, I just cannot understand, like I said, when it seems that there's such glaring incompetence in the dugouts of the Phils and the Mets, and they're totally underachieving. what in the world they are thinking about. But then again, a lot of people have wondered what in the world the Florida Marlins have been thinking about, right? And I mean that because not only are they actually losing more than the Phillies and the Mets, which is tough to do, and not only are they the worst team in the National League, which, like finishing in first, is tough to do as well, but they're not drawing down in Florida. And one of the reasons why is, in my opinion, even when your team's in last place, generally speaking, it can have an identity. And a lot of times you try to get the identity, of when the team was a winner. Say when the Marlins won the World Series in 2003, Or, who's in last place right now, You've got the Detroit Tigers. By the way, the Detroit Tigers, I figured this out. The Detroit Tigers started off 8-6. Since then, they have been on a .258 winning percentage. Just got beat by the Mariners yesterday. I mean, Daniel Norris took the bump on Friday. I said, watch for that game. He actually pitched halfway decent. Bullpen loses it again. Same old Tigers story. I mentioned that because of Johnson City's Daniel Norris. And so the Tigers are going absolutely nowhere. And if they continue their winning percentage that they have after their 8-6 start, which is .258. If they continue that .258 winning percentage for the rest of the way out, then the Tigers' record will be 46-116. Remember how the Tigers lost 119 games back in 2004. I mean, there's a chance they could challenge that. Just seems like every day, I say, yeah, you want to buy a house, bet against Daniel Norris. Actually, Norris is probably going to break through one of these starts eventually. You figure he would. He's on a 8-game losing streak and all this, but it's been more in his last couple of starts, the bullpen, than anything else. Now, though, just any team. They played the Mariners, for crying out loud. Who are the Mariners? Getting beat in a series. Anyway, but at least with the Tigers, if you went to Comerica Park, there'd be a island of statues right there of Tigers greats like Al Kaline, and for that matter, Willie Horton. There is actually a Willie Horton statue at Comerica Park. At least there is enough of, hey, I remember when this team went to the World Series in 2016 and 2012. There is at least we're all behind our baseball team. Go get 'em, Tigers. I mean, even if you weren't around in 1968, there's enough of that feel with the franchise when you walk past the statues. Derek Jeter, when he bought that team, and why Jeter doesn't get more flack for being a bad owner, I will never know. But Derek Jeter stripped away every piece of identity that the Marlins had. Conine gone. McKeon, I know it was more or less, a senior advisory position, but you're the manager that wins the World Series for the Marlins. My goodness, you put him out there and you start saying, hey, you have him come out every once in a while to throw out the first pitch, for crying out loud, or something like that. Just to have people remember, hey, we take care of our legends and things can be good here. But they don't do that in Florida. You know how they try to draw fans with dancing girls in the Clevelander? Which, by the way, is not that bad of a way to do it, but it's not baseball. It's like what I criticized, last week. Why does minor league baseball want to advertise everything but the baseball game? We got a bar in left field, and we got dollar hot dogs, and we've got, dinosaur races in the 6th inning and all that. Everything but the beauty of baseball, which we have to end the game as quickly as we can in extra innings by putting a runner at second. But it makes no sense to me. You're not selling your product. The product of the Marlins, when it was good, was, McKeon, and it was Mark Kotsay, and it was those guys, Well, Derek Jeter, probably going to go to the Hall of Fame next year, but an interesting story coming out. Two guys that were in the Marlins organization, and maybe you don't think of them as Marlins, so to speak, but you do think of them as legends, were Tony Perez, who used to manage the Marlins, by the way, and Andre Dawson. And the Hawk, Andre Dawson, confirmed he hasn't forgiven or forgotten what happened 2 years ago when Jeter just came in and cleaned house and erased every bit of identity that the Marlins had that was positive and just made them, hey, look at me, bunch of losers here. And he's actually saying, you know what, Jeter's probably going to make the Hall of Fame next year. I'm probably not going to go to Cooperstown. Dawson told Bleacher Report about 10 days ago, I sincerely doubt I would attend at this point. All indications are likely not. I can't speak for Tony Perez, but I don't really want to sit on that stage to hear what Jeter has to say. Tony Perez is the nicest person you will ever meet. I have met him. Cheerful. I think he has gotten a bad rap in his 2 managerial stints. I think they ended way too short in Cincinnati and Florida, or the Florida Marlins back then. Perez isn't fully committed to skipping the event, but he's really considering it. And he said that he's not going to feign an excuse, but if he doesn't go, he'll say right out, yeah, Derek Jeter. It wasn't nice what happened at the end, said Perez. Dawson using the I was disrespected moniker and all that. All right, I mean, we get that. But I agree. What is one of the 18 undeniable sports truths Marky Bilson says? A team takes care of their legends. And while maybe Perez, I mean, manager, coach, all that doesn't qualify him as a Marlins legend. Maybe it doesn't do that. Like, I don't know, Moses Alou winning the World Series, the base hit or something like that. But in the Cuban community, Tony Perez is a god. In a baseball community, Tony Perez is a god. And if you ever met him, you'd come away thinking, that is the nicest guy I have ever met. Andre Dawson, also, Hall of Famer. Yeah, maybe you think of him more as an Expo or a Cub than certainly a Marlin. But, I mean, under what circumstances is the opinion of Andre Dawson not acceptable? Jeter just went in and cleaned house. And he's paying a price for it. No identity for the Marlins, no fans, no victories. And now, at least 2 people will be no-shows, it looks like, in Cooperstown next year when he's inducted. You want to talk about bad owners in pro sports? How has Derek Jeter avoided that criticism? I don't know. He has it here. A guy who doesn't get a lot of criticism is SoCon John Hooper. He joins me next, talking about the Southern Conference.
Appalachia. Time to relax in the